Welcome back to the deep dive. I was thinking about that very specific feeling you get when you're studying for a high-stakes exam.
Oh, yeah, I know the one.
You've read the chapters, you've highlighted everything until the pages are basically neon yellow. You've made all the flashcards, you feel like you know the material.
It's that confidence phase, right? You think, okay, I've got this. I've conquered the subject matter.
Exactly. And then you sit for a mock exam, or even worse, the real thing, and you just get absolutely crushed.
Hmm.
You look at your results and you're just thinking, but I knew the answer to that. Why on earth did I get it wrong?
Yes.
It's that gap,
Yep.
the gap between I understand this concept in my head and I can answer this very specific, kind of twisted question on the page.
It is the absolute worst feeling, but it's also the most instructive. That gap you're talking about,
Yeah,
that is exactly where we are living today. We aren't just, reviewing real estate topics. We are doing a forensic analysis.
a crime scene investigation.
Essentially, yes. We are dissecting a crime scene where marks were just hemorrhaging. We got our hands on a very, very specific document.
Yeah.
It's a post-mortem feedback report. It's from a student who recently took a mock version of the Ontario real estate exam. Specifically, they were tackling the sections on condominiums and rural properties.
And this isn't just a list of wrong answers, is it? It's not just, oh, answer C was correct.
At all.
It's more like a map of how they got them wrong.
Well,
This report, it's titled Mastering the Ontario Real Estate Exam, Condominiums and Rural Properties. And it breaks down 10 specific failure points.
yeah.
It shows us not just the knowledge gap, but the logic gap.
And that distinction is absolutely vital, the logic gap.
Right.
What we are going to see today is that the student, well, they often knew the facts, they did the reading, but they applied the wrong logic. They applied what I call real-world logic.
Real-world logic, what's that?
It's how actual agents talk and think and, negotiate in the coffee shop.
Oh.
And they use that versus what we need, which is exam logic. And exam logic is a rigid, legislative, black and white beast.
I love that distinction. Real-world logic is messy, it's gray. Exam logic is binary.
Exactly. If you try to bring your gray area thinking, well, it depends on the deal, kind of thinking into the exam room, you will fail.
You're just setting yourself up for failure.
You are. The exam rewards precision and absolute adherence to the statute.
Okay, so the mission for this deep dive is to move beyond just reciting facts.
Yeah.
We want to understand the architecture of the exam itself.
The how, not just the what.
Exactly. We want to find those little leak points where really smart, prepared people lose marks. Because honestly, the difference between a pass and a fail often isn't what you know.
Mm-hmm.
It's how you read the question.
It really is. And at the end of this report, there's something fascinating. The authors offer what they call a meta-diagnosis.
Meta-diagnosis.
Yeah. They identify 5 specific psychological traps that this one student fell into over and over again across completely different topics.
Okay, so that meta-diagnosis is the real gold mine here.
It's the key.
If we can understand those 5 traps, then we can apply that defense to any question.
It's the master key. It unlocks the whole test.
All right, let's put on our forensic gloves and get into the evidence. Segment 1. The source calls this the paperwork jungle.
A very appropriate name.
And specifically, we're looking at the document that really defines condominium life, the status certificate.
Ah, the holy grail of condo due diligence. If you're buying a condo, you live and you die by this one document.
Now, the failure here is so fascinating to me because it feels so intuitive to get it wrong.
It does.
The student was asked about the purpose of the status certificate, and they answered that the certificate is there to confirm the adequacy of the reserve fund.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, does the building have enough money to fix the roof when it leaks?
And that right there is the thumbs up, thumbs down trap. It is, I think, the most common misconception we see, not just with students, but with buyers and even some experienced agents.
Really?
Absolutely. The student assumes the document provides a verdict, a judgment. They want the piece of paper to say, yes, the fund is healthy, or no, run away, this place is broke.
But it doesn't do that.
It explicitly does not do that. The status certificate is a data dump.
Just data.
That's it. It is a snapshot of the current find and control reality. Think of it like a bank statement. A bank statement tells you you have exactly $1,450,000 in the account.
Right.
It does not tell you, and this is enough money for you to retire on.
That's a brilliant analogy. It gives you the number, but it doesn't give you the judgment.
Exactly. The status certificate lists the ingredients, but it doesn't cook the meal for you. It tells you the exact balance of the reserve fund.
Mm.
It lists if there are any arrears. So does this specific unit you're buying owe money? It lists if there are any legal actions, like a slip and fall lawsuit pending against the corporation. It's just facts.
It just provides the raw data.
Correct. Now, why is this such a trap on the exam? Because adequacy is a subjective judgment.
Right, adequate for what?
Exactly. Adequate for a new roof in 10 years. Or adequate for a major pipe burst that could happen tomorrow. The status certificate, it includes a summary of the reserve fund study, which gives a projection.
Okay.
But the certificate itself makes no promises that the money is enough.
So if I'm a student sitting in that exam hall and I see a multiple choice question where one of the answers is the status certificate confirms the adequacy of the reserve fund, my brain should be just screaming red flag.
Immediate red flag. The statute says it confirms the balance, not the adequacy. The exam is testing your knowledge of the legislation, not your knowledge of buyer psychology.
Right.
As a buyer, of course you want adequacy, but the document itself only gives you the balance.
This is a perfect example of that real world versus exam logic you mentioned at the top.
It is.
In the real world, we look at the document to determine adequacy. We use it as a tool for that. But the document itself doesn't state it.
Precisely. You take that data to a lawyer or an accountant, and they tell you if it's adequate. The paper just holds the numbers. Your job is to get the paper.
Okay, so keeping with this whole paperwork theme, let's talk about the alphabet soup.
Mm-hmm.
The source report highlights a failure where the student just started, well, inventing documents.
Oh, yes, the Phantom Condominium Information Certificate.
It sounds so real, doesn't it? I'll have the condominium information certificate, please. It just sounds so official.
Mm-hmm.
But the source says no such thing.
Nope. It doesn't exist. The student was likely panicking. You know, they saw an acronym or a title that looked vaguely familiar, and they just mashed a few different terms together.
A panic merge.
A panic merge. And the exam creators love to do this. They will throw in a distractor answer that sounds incredibly plausible, incredibly professional, but is total nonsense.
So let's clear the fog here. If we are studying for this, what are the actual acronyms we need to burn into our brains regarding all these information certificates?
There are 3 big ones in the information certificate family that you absolutely must know. First, the PIC.
PIC.
The Periodic Information Certificate.
Okay, let's break that down. PIC, periodic. So how often does that one go out?
Twice a year. Think of it as the corporation's official newsletter, but, legally binding.
Right.
It's sent to all the owners to keep them in the loop. It tells them who the directors are, if there's a budget deficit, basic insurance information. It's the heartbeat of the corporation's communication.
So PIC equals periodic equals twice a year. Got it. Okay, what's the next one?
The ICU.
Which, contrary to how I feel when I'm cramming for this test, does not stand for intensive care unit.
Though some condo boards might feel like they belong there from time to time.
I'm sure.
In condo land, ICU stands for Information Certificate Update.
Update being the key word there.
Right. This is an event-driven document. You don't send it on a schedule. You send it when something important happens.
Okay, so what kind of something?
Significant changes. Let's say a director resigns in the middle of their term, or a new director is appointed to fill a vacancy, or maybe the address for service of the corporation changes.
Ah.
Anything that makes the information in the last PIC inaccurate. The Condo Act basically says, hey, you can't wait 6 months to tell the owners the president quit. You have to send an ICU.
That makes perfect sense. It's the breaking news alert of the condo world.
That's a great way to put it.
And the third one, I see NOIC.
NOIC.
The NOIC, New Owner Information Certificate.
I'm guessing that one is fairly self-explanatory from the name.
It is, but you have to know the acronym. When a new owner closes on a unit and their name gets registered, the corporation sends them an NOIC.
It's the welcome packet.
Exactly. It's the official welcome packet.
Okay.
It includes the most recent PIC and any recent ICUs, so the new guy is up to speed on everything that's been happening. So the trap the student fell into was probably a question asking which document is sent twice yearly, and they saw the fake condominium information certificate and thought, that sounds right, instead of PIC.
That's exactly it. Or they mixed up the triggers. You have to categorize them in your mind.
Right.
PIC is time-based. ICU is event-based. NOIC is person-based.
Time, event, person. That's a fantastic way to remember it. Okay, moving to the third paperwork failure in this jungle, the turnover meeting.
This is a massive event in the life of a condo.
So for those who haven't bought a brand new condo, can you set the stage? What is the turnover meeting?
It's basically the graduation ceremony for the building.
Yeah.
When a condo is built, it's controlled by the developer. The developer appoints the first board of directors, and it's usually their own employees.
Of course.
But eventually, once enough units are sold and closed, the control has to transfer from the developer to the actual owners. The turnover meeting is the specific event where the owners vote in their own board for the first time, and the developer hands over the keys to the kingdom.
So the student missed a question about the timing of the documents for this meeting.
Yes.
They assumed there was some kind of grace period that the builder had, 60 days after the meeting to hand over the architectural plans, the warranties, the financial records.
That is a very real-world assumption. It makes sense, right? In business, we often have net 30 or net 60 terms. We are used to saying, oh, I'll get that to you next week.
Right.
But for the turnover meeting, the Condo Act is incredibly strict. The core operational documents must be delivered at the meeting.
Not after. At the meeting, like physically in the room.
Yes. The new board needs to leave that meeting with the ability to actually run the building. They need the corporate seal. They need the minute book. They need the register of owners.
That makes sense.
You can't run a corporation for 60 days without knowing who the owners are.
I can see why the student got confused, though. There are other timelines involved in turnover, aren't there? It's not just that one moment.
There are, and that's the trap. For example, the builder has to call the meeting within a certain window, usually 21 days after the developer loses majority control to call it, and then the meeting is held within another window.
Okay.
And, more importantly, there are audited financial statements regarding the final transfer of funds that might come later. Often those come within 60 days after the meeting.
So they mixed up the audited financials with the operational documents.
Precisely. They conflated the timeline for the final accounting with the timeline for the box of keys.
Okay.
The failure point here was about the operational stuff, the warranties, the plans, the seal, and those are due on the spot.
So the takeaway for studying is you have to be precise. If the question asks about turnover documents generally or these key operational items, you have to lean towards at the meeting.
Don't give the builder a break that the law doesn't give them.
Precision is the name of the game.
It is.
That brings us perfectly to segment 2. The source report calls this one the stay in your lane rule. And honestly, this feels like it goes way beyond the exam. This is about professional survival.
This is the most dangerous trap for eager, helpful agents. It touches on ethics, liability, and the very definition of your role. We all want to be helpful. We want to be the hero for our client.
Okay, so here's the scenario from the failure report. The test question posed a situation where a salesperson, a registrant, receives a status certificate on behalf of their buyer client. The salesperson reads it, they review the budget, they look at the reserve fund, and then they advise the buyer. Yeah, this looks good. No red flags here. You're safe to proceed.
And on the exam, that answer is 100% incorrect.
But in the real world, agents do this all the time. They say, oh, I looked at it. The reserve fund is $1 million. You're fine.
They do, and every time they do it, they are exposing themselves to massive liability. The exam is trying to beat this habit out of you before you even start. This is what the report calls the role boundary trap.
So what is the hard and fast rule here?
Status certificate equals lawyer territory, period. End of story.
Status certificate equals lawyer territory.
Seriously. As a registrant, you are not an accountant. You are not a lawyer. You are not a structural engineer. When you interpret that document, when you say something like the reserve fund is adequate, you are giving a professional opinion on a subject you are not licensed to practice in.
So what is the registrant's job in this scenario? If I can't read it and give my opinion, what am I getting paid for?
You're the project manager. Your job is to make sure the condition clause in the offer is robust and allows enough time for a proper review. Your job is to ensure the document is requested and received on time.
Okay.
And your job is to explain the process. You say, here's the certificate. Now, the next step is we need to get this to your solicitor for their professional review. You facilitate the expert advice. You do not provide it.
I like that distinction a lot. You facilitate, you don't diagnose.
Think of yourself like a triage nurse, not the surgeon. You check the vitals, okay, we have the document, and you get the patient to the specialist. If a nurse tries to perform open heart surgery, people die. If an agent tries to play lawyer, deals die, and lawsuits happen.
The source material has a great quote on this. It says, don't diagnose the certificate, just deliver it.
It's a rule that's designed to protect the public, but honestly, it's also there to protect you. Lawyers carry errors and omissions insurance specifically for giving legal advice. You don't.
Good point.
If you tell a client the reserve fund is fine, and 2 years later they get hit with a $50,000 special assessment because you missed a tiny footnote about the garage crumbling, they are going to come back to you. They will say, you told me it was safe, and you will have no defense.
So for the exam, if you see an option that says, review and advise the client on the financial health of the condo, that is a trap.
100% a trap.
And the correct answer will almost always involve something like, refer to a legal professional for review.
Every single time. Even if the other option sounds more helpful or more proactive, the exam rewards safety over heroism.
Okay, that's a big one. Let's shift gears to segment 3. We're calling this the absolutes trap. This one feels less about specific real estate law and more about basic logic.
It's about reading comprehension, really. It's about how we read sentences when we're under pressure.
The failure point here was about special assessments. First, can we just quickly define that for a listener who hasn't owned a condo yet?
Sure. A special assessment is the condo owner's nightmare. It happens when the reserve fund runs dry or a major unexpected repair comes up, like the roof blows off or the underground garage is collapsing.
Oh, wow.
And the corporation needs cash now. They can't wait to save up over 10 years. So they send a bill to every single unit owner that says, you owe us $10,000 payable immediately.
Ouch. That is painful. Okay, so the student understood what it was, but they failed on the mechanics of the payment.
Yes.
They assumed that a special assessment must be paid in a lump sum.
And that one word, must, is the killer.
The source report says this is part of the absolutes trap. The student assumed that because it's an emergency demand for money, it has to be immediate and all at once.
In reality, the Condo Act gives boards a lot of discretion. And you have to remember, boards are made up of owners, right? They're your neighbors.
Yep.
They don't want to bankrupt the single mom in 4B or the retiree in 2A. So while they can demand a lump sum, they often structure it. They might say, pay us over 12 months. Or the corporation might borrow the money from a bank to fix the roof and then just increase the monthly fees for everyone to pay back that loan over 5 years.
So the rigidity was the mistake. The assumption of rigidity.
Exactly. The student likely saw an answer choice that said something like, special assessments are always collected as a lump sum payment, and they clicked it because it sounded authoritative and definitive.
And the rule of thumb for the expert advice here is, be terrified of words like must, always, and never.
Unless you are talking about a fundamental definition like, you must be 18 to vote. Reality is usually nuanced. If an answer uses that kind of absolute language, it is highly likely to be the distractor answer.
The trap answer.
The trap. The correct answer will usually have softer words like typically may, can, or subject to the board's discretion.
Nuance is the friend of the correct answer. I'm writing that down.
It's a great test-taking strategy. If you have to guess on a question, guess the answer that allows for exceptions.
Okay, let's move to segment 4. We are entering the world of new construction. Pre-construction condos, glossy brochures, beautiful model suites, and lots of promises.
And the inevitable disappointment when the project is delayed for 3 years.
That is a little too real, but we are looking specifically at the protections involved. The source highlights a hard number trap here involving Tarion.
Tarion is the new home warranty corporation in Ontario. They are the ones who protect your deposit if the builder goes bankrupt before the place is even built.
The student confused the numbers here. They selected $40,000 as the coverage limit for a condo deposit.
And that is incorrect. $40,000 is a number that floats around in the freehold world, or it used to be. But for condominium units, the deposit protection under Tarion is capped at $20,000.
Wait, only $20,000? That seems incredibly low. I mean, condo deposits can be $80,000 or $100,000 these days.
They can.
So if I put down $100,000 and the builder vanishes, I only get $20,000 back from Tarion.
Under the standard Tarion warranty, yes. Now, to be fair, there are excess deposit insurance policies that some projects have, but we're talking about the statutory minimums that are tested on the exam. The exam wants to make sure you know that base limit so you don't misinform a client.
Why the difference, though? Why is a house potentially covered for more, or at least differently, than a condo?
It has a lot to do with how the money is held in trust. Condo deposits under the Condo Act are held in a specific trust account by a lawyer or a trustee, which offers a layer of safety that freehold deposits didn't always have historically. The Tarion warranty is a backstop, but regardless of the why for the exam, you need to memorize the what.
So it's flashcard time. Condo deposit equals $20,000 max coverage.
Correct. If the question asks, a buyer puts down $50,000 on a pre-con condo, the builder goes bankrupt, how much does Terrian cover? The answer is $20,000. The buyer loses the other $30,000 unless there are other protections in place.
That is a massive loss.
It's a harsh reality check.
Okay, now, part 2 of new construction. Substitutions. This is the bait-and-switch fear that every single buyer has.
I picked the beautiful marble countertops, but I walked in on closing day and they're granite.
Right. So the student assumed that if a builder wants to swap something out, they must, there's that word again, get written notice and permission for all material substitutions.
And that feels fair, doesn't it? If I'm paying $500,000 for this place, ask me before you change my kitchen.
But the exam says, nope.
The exam, and more importantly, the standard agreement of purchase and sale says, the builder has the right to substitute materials without notice, provided that the substitution is of equal or better quality.
The equal or better clause, I've heard of that.
It's a supply chain necessity. Imagine if a builder is finishing a 50-story tower. They need 400 of a specific model of sink. The manufacturer calls and says, sorry, that model's been discontinued.
Right.
If the builder had to stop and get written permission from 400 different buyers to switch to a slightly different sink, the building would never, ever get finished.
So they just swap it for the next model up from the new catalog and keep moving.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And legally, that is allowed. The student's error was applying a consumer retail logic, where you expect to get exactly what you saw on the shelf, to a mass construction logic, where completion is the priority.
So if the question asks, the builder replaces the specified hardwood with a higher grade engineered wood due to a supply shortage, did they breach the contract? The answer is likely no, provided it is of equal or better value.
Spot on. You nailed it.
All right, segment 5. Let's follow the money. Money mechanics. We're talking HST and this terrifying acronym called EGIM. Let's start with the tax.
The HST rebate. This trips up everyone, not just students. It's a confusing topic.
The scenario is a pre-construction purchase. The student assumed the HST rebate is paid to the buyer, like you close on the condo and a few months later the government mails you a check for $24,000.
And while that is technically possible if you paid the full HST price up front and then applied for the rebate yourself later, that is almost never how the transaction is structured in the contract.
So how does the exam frame it? How does it usually work?
The exam frames it as an assignment. The price you see on the marketing flyer, let's say it's $500,000, that price includes the HST, and it assumes the builder is keeping the rebate.
Okay, so the builder is basically saying, look, I'll apply for the rebate on your behalf, and I'll just deduct that amount from the total price right now to make the number look better.
Correct. The buyer assigns the rebate to the builder at closing. This keeps the advertised price lower, which is obviously better for marketing. The catch is, if the buyer doesn't qualify for the rebate, say they're an investor who isn't going to live there, the builder will demand that money back at closing.
That's a nasty surprise on closing day. Surprise, you owe another $24,000.
It happens constantly. But for the exam question, the trap was about the direction of the cash flow. The student thought, rebate equals money to buyer. The correct concept is, rebate equals a credit assigned to the builder to lower the initial purchase price.
Handled by the builder via assignment. That's the key phrase to lock into your brain.
Yes.
Now, let's do some math. I promise to keep it painless. EGIM. EGIM. Effective Gross Income Multiplier.
This is for evaluating investment properties. Multi-unit residential buildings, typically.
The student got the formula wrong because they fell into the definition trap. They used gross scheduled income in their calculation.
Ah, the fantasy number.
Explain the difference for us. What is gross scheduled income versus effective gross income?
Gross scheduled income is the absolute maximum potential rent. It's the number you get if you assume every single unit is occupied 365 days a year and every single tenant pays their rent on time. It is the perfect world scenario.
Which doesn't exist.
It never exists. You always have vacancy, someone moves out, it takes a month to re-rent. You always have bad debt tenants who skip town or refuse to pay. Effective gross income is the reality number. It is the scheduled income minus an allowance for vacancy and credit loss.
So if I have a building that could theoretically make $100,000 in a year, but I have a 5% vacancy rate, My effective gross income is actually $95,000.
Exactly. And the multiplier formula eGEM relies on that real number. The formula is sale price divided by effective gross income. The student likely divided the sale price by the scheduled income, the fantasy number.
Which would give you a lower multiplier and make the building look like a better deal than it actually is.
Precisely. You were doing math on a fantasy. The exam requires you to take that extra step. Calculate the vacancy deduction first, then do the division.
Okay, so let's operationalize this for studying. Step 1, find the fantasy rent. Step 2, subtract the vacancy reality check. Step 3, divide the sale price by the reality check number.
That's the algorithm. Don't you dare skip step 2.
Okay, moving to segment 6, rights and dates. This sounds like a soap opera title. As the leasehold turns.
It can be dramatic stuff for sure. Let's talk about leasehold condos.
The student, according to the report, treated these as just renting.
Which is an understandable mistake given the name. But a leasehold condo is a form of ownership.
Explain that. How can you own a lease? It sounds like a contradiction.
Think of it this way. You don't own the dirt. The land itself might belong to a university or a hospital or the crown, but you do own the box in the sky. You own the leasehold interest in that unit for a very long time.
So I can sell it.
Yes. You can list it on MLS. You can sell your interest to someone else.
Can I get a mortgage on it?
Yes, though banks might have some specific rules depending on how many years are left on the main lease. But it is a mortgageable asset.
Can I vote at the annual general meeting?
Absolutely. You are a voting member of the condominium corporation.
So the student's mistake was basically stripping away all of these fundamental rights of ownership. They likely picked an answer that said something like, leasehold owners are tenants with no voting rights.
Which is completely false. They are owners of a time-limited interest. But if the lease is for 99 years, for all intents and purposes, you are the owner. The exam wants you to be able to distinguish this from a standard rental apartment.
Got it. Okay, now let's look at the dates in the agreement of purchase and sale.
Yeah.
There are so many dates.
So many.
The student got tangled in the hierarchy of importance. They identified the irrevocable date as not key.
Oh boy. That is a big error, a fundamental one.
Why? What is the irrevocable date so important?
It's the detonator. It's the ticking clock on the offer. If I write you an offer to buy your house and I set the irrevocable for 6:00 p.m. tonight at 6:01 p.m., that offer ceases to exist. It's dead. It's gone.
It's the Cinderella clause. At midnight, the carriage turns back into a pumpkin.
That's a perfect analogy. Without an irrevocable date, the offer is invalid. It's open-ended. It creates chaos. Along with the completion date, the closing date, the irrevocable is a core pillar of the contract. You can't have a contract without it.
So why on earth did the student think it wasn't key?
They were likely confusing key and mandatory with key and strategic. They might have been thinking about conditional dates, like the date for your inspection or your financing. You can have an offer without conditions. That's called a firm offer.
Right.
But you cannot have an offer without an irrevocable time.
That's a crucial distinction. Conditions are optional. The irrevocable time is structural to the offer itself.
Yes. So if the question asks, which date is not mandatory in an offer, you should be looking for the inspection clause date or something similar. Don't you touch the irrevocable date.
And quickly, on the requisition date. The student treated this as a sort of catch-all date for complaining about the property.
Right. The furnace is broken, so I'll object by the requisition date. No, that's not what it's for.
So what is the requisition date for, strictly speaking?
Title. It is the deadline for your lawyer to check the ownership history of the property. Are there any leasements? Is there an old easement that wasn't disclosed? Is the person selling it actually the legal owner?
It's not for leaky faucets or scratched floors.
No. Leaky faucets are for the home inspection condition. Requisition is for the legal quality of the ownership. You have to keep those lanes separate in your mind.
Okay, segment 7. We are leaving the city now, listing logic and rural rules.
This is where things get wild. Literally.
Let's start with listing logic for a condo. The student answered a question about what is considered key information for a new listing, and they answered it from the perspective of an owner-occupier.
This is a classic perspective trap. The question likely asked, from the perspective of the corporation or the listing agent's duty of disclosure, what is key? But the student answered from the perspective of, what do I, as a resident, care about day to day?
And the specific point of contention here was short-term rental allowances.
The Airbnb rules.
The student didn't think that was key info. Maybe they were thinking, well, I'm going to live there, I'm not renting it out, so who cares?
But the market cares. And the corporation definitely cares. Even if you don't plan to Airbnb your unit, the fact that your neighbor can fundamentally changes the value of the property.
So?
It changes the noise level, the security, the wear and tear on the elevators and the pool. It changes the entire character of the building.
So whether they are permitted or prohibited, the rules around short-term rentals are a material fact that must be disclosed.
100%. The exam wants you to look at the rules of the universe for that building. Pets, rentals, amenities. These affect everyone. The student likely prioritized something personal, like the average rent arrears of other units.
Right.
If I'm buying a unit to live in, I don't really care if the guy on the 4th floor is behind on his rent to his landlord. That's completely irrelevant to me.
Okay, now let's wade into the water. Rural jurisdiction. This is the who is the boss trap.
This is complex because we often have 3 levels of government fighting over the same cottage property.
Failure point. Water testing.
Yeah.
I have a well. I want to know if I can drink the water. Who tells me?
The student guessed the Ontario Water Resources Act, or the Ministry of Environment.
I mean, it sounds official. It has water resources right in the name.
It does, but you have to think about the mandate. The Ministry of Environment deals with water quantity and large-scale permits like if a factory wants to suck 1 million liters out of the river. If you, a homeowner, just want to know, is this water safe for my kids to drink? That is a health issue.
The authority is.
The local public health unit, or an accredited private lab. But the jurisdiction you need to think of is health, not environment.
Okay. What about the shoreline? I want to build a boathouse. Who's the boss there?
The student guessed the municipality. You know, I'll go to the town hall and get a building permit.
Which you probably do need.
You do, but the ultimate authority over the bed of the lake and the shoreline itself is usually the province. Specifically, the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry under the Public Lands Act.
Because the bottom of the lake is technically Crown land.
Exactly. You can't just build a structure on public land without provincial permission. The municipality manages the zoning on top of that, but they don't own the water. The student missed that entire provincial layer.
That is a jurisdictional lasagna. There's so many layers.
It is. And the exam loves to test to see if you know all the layers.
Last point on rural. Zoning. The students seem to assume that if a property is zoned vaguely, you can probably get it changed.
Never assume rezoning is possible. That should be the mantra. If a client says, I want to buy this farm and turn it into a subdivision, and you say, yeah, we can probably get that rezoned, you are walking directly into a lawsuit.
So the correct exam answer is always.
Verify with the municipality. Confirm the current permitted use. Never, ever promise a future use.
Wow. We have covered a massive amount of ground here. We've dissected 10 specific failures. But as you promised at the top, we need to bring this all together. Segment 8, the meta-diagnosis.
This is the toolkit you take with you into the exam room.
The report identifies 5 traps. Let's run through them, because if you can spot the trap, you can usually spot the right answer.
Trap number 1, the absolutes trap.
So we're watching out for those words. Must, always, never.
That's right. Reality is flexible. Statutes often have exceptions. If an answer is rigid and allows for no exceptions, it's usually wrong.
Okay. Trap number 2, the role boundary trap.
Know who you are. You are a salesperson. You are not a lawyer. You are not a home inspector. You are not a structural engineer. If the answer involves you giving an opinion on another professional's turf, it is wrong.
Stay in your lane. Got it. Trap number 3, the hard number trap.
Some things just need to be memorized. Tarion is $20,000 for condos. There's no logic to it. It's just a number. Don't guess. Make the flashcard and drill it.
Okay. Trap number 4, the definition trap.
Words matter so much. Effective income is not gross income. A status certificate is a statement of facts, not a judgment of health. Don't let your brain autocorrect the terms on the page. Read them literally.
And finally, trap number 5, the jurisdiction trap.
Who is the boss? Is it the city? Is it the province? Or is it the public health unit? You have to know the hierarchy of authority for what you're dealing with.
It's fascinating when you lay it all out like that. The exam isn't just testing your knowledge of real estate. It's testing your character. It's testing your caution.
That's a really deep insight. It really is. The exam is designed to filter out the cowboys, the people who guess, who assume, who try to do everything themselves. Those people are dangerous in the real world.
The cowboy fails the exam, so who passes?
The guide. The person who knows the process, knows the limits of their own knowledge, and knows who to call when they hit that limit.
I love that. Be the guide, not the hero.
In an age where any client can Google condo fees in 5 seconds, your value isn't knowing the number off the top of your head. Your value is knowing where that number comes from, what it means, and who has the authority to verify it.
So, I don't know the answer, but I know exactly who does. That's a passing grade answer on the exam.
It is. And frankly, it's a much more successful long-term career strategy.
Well, there you have it. A forensic deep dive into the failure points of the condominium and rural properties exam content. I really hope this helps you turn those red X's into green checks on your next mock test.
And remember, drill those Terranati numbers. $20,000, don't forget it.
20,000. Got it. Thanks for listening to the deep dive. Good luck with your studies.
Good luck.
We'll see you next time.